Welcome back to the Blackletter podcast. We set out to create an entertaining and exciting podcast about law and business, and I think we've done it. Blackletter, the name, comes from the Gothic typeset that was originally used in the Gutenberg press. Over time, Blackletter became the only font that English law books were printed in. Everything else was printed in regular type. It made it harder for kind of the common person to understand what the English law books said. Blackletter came to represent something that was law, that was set in stone, that was sort of old and a well-settled fundamental principle of law. We're here to demystify Blackletter law. We're here to demystify things that happen in business and law and where those two meet. And I hope you have fun listening. Welcome again to season 2 of Blackletter, the podcast. Today we have with us DeAnna Burke and David Ludwig. So DeAnna is the Chief Operating Officer of the law firm Dunlap, Bennett and Ludwig. And we have her here to talk about first the fact that she is a female executive at a company of more than 120 employees, global law firm, and what that's like as a non-lawyer. Talk a little bit about her background and kind of the way she's doing things differently at the law firm, a different model for managing and operating a law practice in a new age. So welcome, DeAnna.
Oh, thanks for having me.
Oh, and welcome, David. Again, back to the show.
Thanks for having me as well. Happy to be back.
So DeAnna, tell us about your background and how you came to be the COO of a global law firm.
Okay. Well, it was, I started working at a software company in Herndon, and I really enjoyed kind of the technical side. So I was more of a very technical analyst, did some technical writing.
Well, what was your degree in college? So
math and history.
So you're a math major?
And a history major.
That sounds incredibly exciting, and it sounds like they're kind of polar opposites. So after college, you went to Herndon, Virginia.
Yep.
And what was that company?
That was Metron Aviation, so a small tech company that did air traffic management software.
Okay.
So very niche kind of group, but I really excelled in that and really loved the work and technical side of things. So,
okay.
I really have this principle that you do whatever you're assigned, you do it well. And through that kind of principle, I just started working up the ladder from that. So from a very basic.
So what year was this that you started at Metron?
I'm kind of dating myself a little bit, but that was 2001.
Okay, so I know this, though, and I don't know the whole background, but before 2001, you were on the U.S. Olympic team for a little while?
I wasn't on the Olympic team. I was what we call shortlisted. So through the years, and I'm going to do a little humble brag right now, but in 1994, I was ranked the #1 young rider and newcomer in the world.
So riding, just so
riding
everybody
horses.
knows, horses.
Yes.
So,
and the sport of 3-day eventing. So give it a shout out for that. Yay, eventing.
And so what is 3-day eventing?
I look at it as the triathlon for horses. So we do kind of 3 phases. So I was very competitive and loved doing that.
So you were the #1 young horsewoman in the world in 1994, and you decided to quit? Or what happened?
I didn't decide to quit. I guess that's part of my life route, right? So my horse got injured.
Mm-hmm.
So when I say not on the Olympic team, you have not just yourself to keep healthy, you have your horse to keep healthy.
So your horse gets on the team too.
Horse gets on the team too.
Yeah.
And I didn't have a substitute horse, so to speak. So we didn't make the team. So that kind of came, that part of my life I chose to, my parents said, hey, you're going to have to finish your education. Get a real job.
Well, so is there a lot of money in riding a horse? I mean, is that a way to get wealthy?
It's a passion. It's not riding horses is a passion.
I was joking. I think a horse
people make money.
A horse trips and breaks its leg and it's worth 0, right?
Yes.
It's like a 5-minute thing that could happen. It's not like you can knock
have a horse
a dent
that's
out.
going to the Olympics and worth, $500,000 one day and the next day is a, hurt leg and he's
out
worth
in the
nothing.
field nag. It's
not a nag. But...
Okay. Love talking to horse people about horses. So, all right. So then you went to college, William and Mary, I think.
Yep.
And then you graduated, you went to Metron Aviation. And then where'd you go from Metron? What'd you do at Metron? And then what happened?
So it started as an analyst, so just kind of crunching numbers and working through that. I eventually went to program management. So actually project management first, then project, and then more into program management. In 2011, Metron Aviation was bought out by Airbus acquisition.
The French company with
the big planes.
So Boeing has the planes that crash. Is that right? And Airbus is the ones that right now they aren't crashing.
They're like the kind of top of the list right now.
Okay, because they don't have that software glitch thing.
Right. They haven't, killed anybody recently, so that's good.
Okay, so that's good. So you went to work for the French company.
Right. Our company got acquisition through Airbus. So when they took us over, I kind of transitioned. I initially worked for kind of primarily the FAA, and I transitioned when Airbus took over. I transitioned to the commercial side. So I went to developing programs for different countries. So Singapore, Australia, Bogota, Colombia, South Africa. So that was really great experience to kind of incorporate management of a lot of different principles and ideas in different countries have all different,
So were you managing groups of people or teams?
So you have developers, of course, project managers from the other groups. So the other organizations kind of in China, even in China, we worked there a bit too. So so you're communicating kind of the technical side of things, talking to developers and also talking to more of the management side,
political side
of it.
So my understanding of the aviation world, and I was a pilot and I was on an airport commission, and that commission consisted 100% of men, that it's a male dominated industry.
Yes.
Did you find that was the same when
100%.
You were working?
100%.
So how many other women were kind of in your management level at Airbus, like in the kind of role you were in?
There are a few. I could probably count them on one hand, but especially in going to the other countries was even more noticeable. I think the United States was a bit, more progressive in that way.
So weird to hear that. Well, not more progressive than maybe Singapore, but more progressive than Europe. I'm surprised.
Not necessarily in the sense in that world. So
in the world of aviation.
In the world of aviation,
Gotcha.
And it wasn't. There are many women that do great work in aviation. But I went to a couple of conferences where, I call them manfrances because I felt like I was like one of the only women up at the, panel discussing things. I had one experience where I had a colleague that came with me, actually somebody that worked with me. I was managing the whole program, and people in the group, in the audience, were asking my colleague the questions. And
the person who worked for you, they were asking him the questions because he was,
And I would have to interrupt because he really didn't know. So I had to talk to them.
I'd like to see that. Excuse me. But I actually know the answer to that because I'm his
boss. It was very
interesting,
but you kind of have to politely interrupt and say, well, let me discuss this, and answer for, my colleague. Right.
Well, answer in place of your colleague. So that leads me to my question, how you became the COO. I think it's fair to say that even still in the United States, law tends to have more men than women practicing. And I think the firm that you work at is sort of a reflection of that. There are certainly female partners, but it's a male-dominated profession. And from what I understand, you're the boss of the company. So how does that work? And you're not a lawyer, and you're not a man, and you're running a firm full of, not completely full of, but a lot of lawyers and men with strong personalities. And I dare say, maybe David can back me up on this, lawyers have fairly big egos and fairly strong convictions about how they want to run things. How do you deal with that?
I think it's 100% accurate, but I think it's dealing with the same way of any, even back in aviation world, you had the same personalities. You have people that know what they're doing and they're very smart, and they say, hey, it should be done this way. And I come in and say, hey, well, let's evaluate this and see what we can do better. I think part of the, when I started at DBL, a lot of it is to, one, understand what they are doing very well. And then, gain their trust and understanding, and actually kind of have that knowledge base. Don't say, we're just going to do this, get their buy-in, which we do. And I think it's been successful. You have one small victory at a time, and they start trusting you. And after you get trust, they start saying, oh, she really knows what she's doing, and is more willing to kind of adopt it more quickly.
Well, so tell me about when you joined the firm. The firm was filing more trademarks than any other law firm in the United States.
Yes.
And had a sort of jumbled structure for the process of filing trademarks. I think it filed 1,400 trademarks in the U.S., or registered 1,400, filed 3,500 last year. How did you detangle that web? And did you have to learn about trademarks?
Yes. Sometimes I joke when, I came into the law firm initially, I knew what's the difference between a trademark and a copyright? I had no idea. So it was part of the process of learning. I went into that.
But now you know.
I know a lot more than I know a lot. Sometimes I hear people talking. I'm like, oh, that's not a copyright. That's a trademark. So it's kind of, now my news feed is filled with trademark stuff, which is kind of scary. It used to be aviation stuff. Now it's trademark or, business law, employment law. So, it's interesting. But I think you have to get involved to be able to solve the problems. And I think managers or anybody at any level, if you don't know how to do it yourself and understand what's going on, you can't solve the problem.
So to date, tell me about what the firm's doing operationally. What have you implemented that's different than you've never managed another law firm, but
True.
To your knowledge, I believe that you've had a number of firms join the law firm since you started there, merge into the law firm and become part of DBL. And they've had different traditions and different management styles. What's different about DBL?
I think what's unique with DBL is that with kind of my leadership and with everybody that works kind of on the support staff side. So we have a whole marketing team. We have a client services team.
Mm-hmm.
We really take the management of all the support away, that we will handle that and manage the support. So each attorney coming in doesn't have to worry about paying the rent or...
Well, so you say doesn't have to worry, but lawyers like to be in charge of people and things. Right.
That's a good point. That's actually a very unique thing that we've been working to implement at the firm is to, I don't want to say take away because that's not the right concept. It's we want to support to say we will manage. Explain to them. We will, for example, resources. So we have offices across the United States, some in China. We have offices all over the place and great associates in each of those locations.
Right.
And with different types of workload, you have ramping up and ramping kind of ebb and flow of litigation work or even trademark work, busy times. So being able to transfer kind of work to different associates in different offices makes us extremely versatile, and cost effective, right? So we don't have associates sitting waiting for work at a particular office. We can shift them to other offices.
So what's the challenge with that, though?
The huge challenge there is that every, I shouldn't say every attorney, but any partner that has kind of managed their own firm in the past,
more senior
partners would like to have in the past said, this is my associate. This is, associate X over here is my associate, and they
not
work directly
indentured servitude, but they're in my chain of command. They do my bidding.
Exactly.
That's their lackey. And they don't want to give up their lackey. That's what's going on.
And that's the traditional way it's been done for years in law firms in the United States, too.
Well, yeah. So, David, you've worked at a big law firm and other firms besides DBL. So what is the traditional way? What's different about DBL that you and DeAnna, between the two of you, see?
Yeah, I mean, the traditional model is these practice groups where there's one partner, 3 or 4 associates gathered around them. And if another partner wants to use an associate, they have to beg for permission and ask, pretty please, could I have a couple hours of your person's time? But it creates these little firms within a firm. It's these tiny groups.
I think they call them sometimes, or stovepipes.
Right.
So you set up your medieval castle and you put your little associates inside of your medieval castle.
Right. And the problem there is that what if that partner with those associates doesn't have enough work or has too much work? Or how do you, deal with the ebbs and flows in the workflow? It becomes
very inefficient, right?
It does.
Yeah. So I guess it sounds like one of the biggest challenges is, since that's the what David described as the structure that people are used to and expect. Like, I've got people that work for me and it makes me more important. But what you're saying is there's not much value in that. The value is in partners being able to bill and having associates at their highest and best use. And it makes people happier. And why would you want to manage someone? I mean, I guess that's a question I would ask you. Why would an attorney or David, either of you, why would any attorney want to manage another person? There's got to be some value in that in the traditional model. What does that come from?
Well, I think the traditional model, law as a profession is one of the few professions that still has sort of an apprenticeship component. There is mentoring that's important for young attorneys to learn skill sets. but that's sort of substantive management, right?
We still do that.
Yeah. And so, but the truth.
So there's a mentorship program that overlays this. You don't lose that.
Right. But managing, scheduling, other stuff, that's where I think the efficiencies get lost. And that's what DeAnna can speak to.
Okay, but so if I'm a lawyer and I have a case, because lawyers have cases, that's what they do, and I have a case and I want associates to work on it, I get to tell them what to do on the case.
Definitely.
Okay. But if that associate needs to move desks or needs to order more paper or wants to, has some kind of HR problem, then you handle that. So that's not the partner's problem. But that takes some measure of power out of the partner's hands, but it seems like it's not useful power. I'm making your case for you. I don't know. Is that what you've seen?
I think
because you're the one who argues with everybody.
It has been adopted. In some cases it's harder than others, but I think we're getting there. And part of what we're implementing in the firm is actually we're developing a piece of software that will allow partners or anybody to kind of view into who's available.
So transparency.
Yeah,
so you can say, oh, this associate's clearly watching Netflix 4 or 5 hours a day. I feel like maybe we should have that associate do some more work.
And they have the skill set. They're great at, writing briefs. So we say, look at that type of skill set. This is who's available. And,
we're going to have to buy that software, or we bought it. Does it work?
It's almost there.
Okay. Well, I'm excited about that.
I'm using my software background to help build that.
Hopefully that
with the developer. I'm not the developer.
Soon. So what other things at the firm, what's the biggest challenge that you've faced since joining DBL, since becoming a COO, a boss of bosses?
I think the challenge sometimes is to take things one step at a time. There's so much you can do to improve. It's just, so it can be overwhelming.
Okay.
And I think it can be overwhelming even for change from an attorney's perspective as well. So you have to implement it in a stepped approach. And I think I sometimes have to take a step back and say, okay, there's a lot to be done here. What's kind of step one? And I think that's the challenge of not saying, oh, we can change everything tomorrow, right?
Gotcha.
If you want to, you're like, oh, there's so much we can do, So.
Somewhere between Elon Musk and,
right.
Robert Shapiro, in terms of lawyer and technology.
But it's exciting.
Or Alan Dershowitz. Yeah. I don't know. Is he out of favor now? Didn't he do something recently that people didn't like?
I think there was some headlines. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't remember. Maybe
I think he was tied into the Jeffrey Epstein.
Oh, yeah. Epstein. Yeah. Well, anyway, okay. Before Epstein, Dershowitz, the lawyer of lawyers, and then Elon Musk, the tech of tech guys.
Right.
Maybe the extremes. You got to fall in the middle.
I think so. I mean, I think it's exciting to be at the firm where we are doing things completely different. And I think that when we talk to other partners looking to kind of join DBL, that's something that's really attractive to them. They're like, I don't want to manage some of these HR issues. I don't want to manage moving their desks. So
if I'm a partner joining DBL, do I talk to you as well?
Of course.
Can I ask you questions?
Of course.
And can I ask other partners questions? Or are you going to direct me ask this partner or talk to that partner? How does that? What do you say to people who are interested? Hey, this is a different firm model. How do I bring my firm into your firm, or how do we make that change?
How do we make the change, or how do we talk to them about the change?
I guess both. You decide. You tell me. What do you want to talk about?
Initially, when we were talking to any prospective partners looking to come over, they can talk to me. We talk to them about kind of our philosophy and our culture. But they can talk to any of our partners that are experiencing it. We're very open and honest with hey, go talk to anybody you want to talk to. So they do that. And then when the actual transition goes, which we have done with several partners that have joined us, we look into what they're currently doing and work to fold that into our system. So we don't say tomorrow you have to change everything exactly the way we do things.
It's not one size fits all.
Not at all.
It's we're going to build if you're a square peg, we're going to build an octagonal hole, not a round hole.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we try to be flexible. And I think that's part of what's different. We don't say everybody has to do X, Y, and Z. If it's within our framework, we're happy.
Well, so David, do you have any other comments about the firm or questions for DeAnna that I've left off? Maybe you can help me grill her a little bit. I haven't asked any really hard questions, it seems like.
We've talked about operations and streamlining things, but can you speak to what that means for the clients? Because obviously it makes the firm more efficient internally, but what does the client get out of it?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that ultimately there's a lot of benefit to the clients, and I think there's kind of two aspects of that. I think there is just being able to projectize law in general is make things more efficient, more transparent for the client as well, which is very important. They know what to expect, and we're constantly working on kind of improving what I call case management, not that much different than project management, right? So we have great case managers already, and we're just implementing new processes to add into that to help them. So I think that's great. And then just our efficiency across the board. So we have this matrix kind of work, here are these different associates.
Right.
Because of that, we're very efficient and our rates are very reasonable.
So it costs the client less because you're achieving better efficiencies and delivering the same services, things like that.
And we can have, since we have many offices, we're getting larger. We have a lot of power in negotiating kind of contracts as well. So even some of things like legal research, things like that, we can get great deals through kind of the coordination of, numbers, essentially.
Right. Every office doesn't have their own legal research subscription.
Exactly.
It's a national subscription. So there's the economy of scale factor
Exactly.
too. So what has been the most surprising thing to you in moving from an industry where you're a project manager, aviation, technology, software, to a law firm? What's the biggest, either cultural or operational, or what's the biggest surprise to you? What didn't you expect?
I don't know if it's a surprise. I have adapted a bit to the technical knowledge and skill of attorneys versus developers, which is obvious.
Do you mean lack of technical knowledge and skill?
Different skills.
Like you need Barney-sized buttons that are
Special
purple
skills.
and blink for them to push?
Different set of technical skills.
Let's be honest, attorneys generally
attorneys,
are challenged.
You give them an Excel file and they look at you like you're like crazy. So
even young attorneys. It's weird. It's almost like they de-teach you how to use it. You go to law school and they're like, okay, here's a computer. We're going to teach you how not to use it now. You used it in college, but now you're going to learn this is how you don't use a computer.
So that's been a challenge. I don't know if that's
sure.
the hardest thing, but I think that is definitely a challenge. And I've learned to kind of adapt to that.
I feel, and David, I don't know how you feel. I feel like it's almost a point of pride that lawyers feel like they're technically inept, that they're so cerebral about law and they know so much that they could never say, oh, I can write a JavaScript file or figure out an Excel spreadsheet. It's almost a thing. Like it's something that they prefer. Yeah. Do you get that feeling? Sometimes from some lawyers, I get that feeling.
It's definitely the old school, have a banker's lamp on your desk and you're kind of very traditional. And, the old model,
$12.
That I grew up with was, older attorneys would print out a draft of a letter or a brief, handwrite all their edits, hand it to their secretary. Secretary would type it in.
Give it back to them.
It's like you've got a word processor right there. You could just type it in. But there's some kind of old school training that people have been brought up on that's very inefficient and it's not doing the clients any favors.
I think that's changed. I mean, at least at DBL, it's certainly changing. I've seen an adoption of even like our internal wiki that we have. Initially, like some of the attorneys, I don't think any of the attorneys were really on it. And today, they all use it. So
the wiki?
Yep.
So what is the internal wiki that you have at the firm?
So we use a tool called Confluence, which again is kind of from my more technical background. It's using the Jira. You've probably heard of Jira software, or maybe not. But so it's just an internal wiki that's just, we put everything on there. So it's a lot of internal communication, education. One place.
So handbooks, marketing stuff. Practice procedures,
templates for attorneys,
engagement letters.
Like, don't reinvent the wheel. We've written this, this cease and desist letter.
So instead of searching a huge server file for like the most updated template and checking with everyone, then most updated files always on this wiki.
Exactly, and it's like has a search capability like Google. Like it's just you type in a couple of words and boom, it pops up. So I think. Finally, the attorneys are really starting to adopt it. So I look at the usage like every month, and I'm really seeing kind of the more, they're using it more often. And I think it's reflecting in kind of the practice.
Good. All right. Well, DeAnna, do you have any closing remarks or thoughts? What's your slogan? What's your motto? What do you live by as a law firm manager, not as like somebody who rides horses part-time and makes poor investment decisions?
Well, I think that I think they are related, horses and being successful. I think you have to be kind of passionate about what you do. So I think it's very closely related. Like, do whatever you do and do it well.
Okay. Well, thanks, DeAnna, for joining us. Thank you, David. Thank you for joining us. Find us wherever you get your podcasts at Apple iTunes Store or Google Play, and follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Thanks for joining us on Blackletter.